This story is about the life and times of the Glasses of Toulett, Bert Donegal, who are related to me through my grandfather Davy Joseph Glass on my mother's side. Of the three Glass generations who lived there, two were called David and born in Toulett. Andrew Glass, my great-great-grandfather, was born in 1786, and he obviously obtained the original tenancy of the farm in 1831. He and Alicia Patterson had two daughters, Ellen and Margaret, before my great-grandfather David was born in 1839. Ellen married a Mr. Mahaffey, and Margaret married a James Hamilton. Her son became an early dairy factory owner. The Toulett farm obviously went through difficult times, especially in the potato famine years from 1845 to 1851. But although the land was very mixed in nature, they managed to survive and occasionally prosper in the rest of the 19th century. For 4 years from 1874, a Dr. Walter Bernard, a local amateur historian, organised the reconstruction of the 3,000-year-old ring fort Greenan of Eilich, which was located on the top of the mountain beside the Glass farm. According to Dr. Bernard, he, David, and others discovered ancient bones from the fort, which are now located in the Dublin National Museum. Along with his neighbours, Davy worked alongside Dr. Bernard and was also reputed to have supplied buttermilk and mashed potatoes to other local workers who helped rebuild it. David married Catherine Hamilton in 1877, and she is also important to this tale because there is a degree of mystery about her and a vague whiff of scandal. When I was a child, I heard Philadelphia whispered and actress, a profession which was totally frowned on by Protestant Ulster. However, I have noted that some female descendants have had the same fascination for the acting profession. When I went to find any evidence for the real story, I found in the Derry Journal the marriage notice saying, although Catherine lived locally, her father was listed as a Samuel Hamilton from Portland, Connecticut, America. I just couldn't find him living anywhere in Donegal. But then, in the Derry Journal on the 23rd of February 1843, there was a public letter of thanks to the master of the brig Abbotsford from all the passengers, including Sam Hamilton, for taking them safely to Philadelphia. Sam and Catherine may have been related to the Hamiltons I have already mentioned, but the obvious conjecture is that Catherine was born in America, and at some time, hopefully after an acting career, she returned home to Donegal. Over a decade, David and she produced 6 children, 3 girls and 3 boys. In 1877, Anne was born. In 1879, the first boy, Hamilton Glass, was born. Then Davy, my grandfather, in 1882, followed by Cassandra, 1883, Robert, 1886, and finally Maggie in 1888. By 1894, a number of land acts had ended the Glass tenure on the farm. So along with the increased political uncertainty, a young family, and an economic boom in the nearby city, great-grandfather David Sr. was obliged to move the 5 miles into the Derry outskirts and rent 29 Park Avenue. To feed the family, he became a carter, and as the children grew up, they gradually became employed in the local shirt and collar factories. By 1903, a 21-year-old Davy was carving out his subsequent career, working as a shirt cutter with Sinclair and Company, But on the 2nd of February in the same year, Hamilton, also a shirt cutter, who I believe always wanted to be a farmer, left for Halifax, Nova Scotia, on board the Bavarian. Cassandra married William McKee in 1908, and the other girls became factory workers. Robert became a carriage builder and married Margaret Miller in 1910. By 1911, the remaining family had moved to a small terraced house in Nicholson Square, and that became Glass Central for all of them. The young Davy went from strength to strength, and by 1915 he had already started his first shirt factory, the Atlantic. In 1916, Davy Joseph Glass married Bessie Watson, and they moved to an upmarket house in the Glen Road. It had outhouses, a garage and stables, a pigeon loft, 2 tennis courts, and a very large garden. It was still an easy walking distance from all the other Glass family members. Bessie was a twin. She and her sister Fanny were born in 1891 in Achafad, Tyrone, and moved with their parents and brother John James to Boom City in 1904. Their father remained a farmer, but as an early wheeler-dealer bought land, houses, shops, and, it was rumoured, a pub. Bessie worked in a millinery shop he owned and fell deeply in love with a local chemist. One insurmountable problem. He was a Catholic. Her father, Robert Watson, tried to buy him off, and the Watson family worked very hard to find a suitable replacement. David Glass, as an up-and-coming businessman, was ideal, and Bessie came with a very suitable house as a dowry. From the outset, it was a marriage of convenience. In 1917, my mother Kathleen was born, a difficult birth with a dislocated hip which was never corrected. However, the First War started a period of sustained local economic expansion, and Davy and Bessie went out to play. But there were incompatibilities. Davy was gregarious and loved the social life and dancing, and Bessie did not. Davy looked after his immediate family, employing them in his factory, and Bessie didn't like this, considering them to the wrong social class. She loved fashion and furnishings, but kept very much to her own Watson family relations. He was a Presbyterian. She was Church of Ireland. And the 1798 rebellion still emphasised the social differences. But there were common interests too. The pony and trap was often used, and since Davy was an early adopter of the car, the trips across Donegal were frequent. Davy was a Toad Hall character, always trying something new. With Robert, his brother, the coach builder, he made a travelling horse-drawn caravan. And in 1920 the family took it on the road to the convention in Port Stewart, spending a week getting there. The caravan was left, and as he was driving from Derry to Port Stewart the following year, he saw land for sale at Benone, McGilligan. He bought an acre and moved the caravan there, where it remains until today. The good times probably had to end. In 1929, the Great Recession started. In an accident with the pony and trap, Bessie lost her second child, a son. She was never to recover from that, although she did have another child, a daughter, Daphne, in 1930. The shirt and collar business collapsed, and from then on, Davy was a haunted man, always struggling to keep the business afloat. In 1934, he sold the factory to an English company, Jakes, Purvis and Coleman. But the debts continued to mount, and he put the Glen up for sale in 1937. Bessie and the girls moved out of the house, into one in Lawrence Hill, and Davy moved back to Nicholson Square. Bessie's world had also ended, and her father, Robert Watson, came to the rescue by buying the house back for her. It wasn't until much later, after the Second War, that Davy was allowed back. Such was the acrimony between the Glass and Watson families that Davy did not attend my mother's wedding to Cochrane Morrison in 1937. Meantime, in Canada, Hamilton Glass had met Bertrand Sim, who sailed on the Tunisian from Liverpool to Nova Scotia in April 1903. She would have arrived in Halifax at much the same time as Hamilton. They eventually married, and after a long and arduous life became a respected farming family in Moosomin, Saskatchewan. He and Bertrand had 2 children, Kathleen and Ernest. Kathleen married an Albert Freibel, and there are a considerable number of Kathleen's descendants. Andrew Hamilton Glass died in Moosomin in 1936. Subsequently, while his son Ernest was serving in the Royal Canadian Air Force, he was killed as the pilot of a Wellington bomber at Chewett Hall Wood, Yorkshire, on the 2nd of January 1944. He was 27. The youngest of the Toulett Glasses, Robert, married Margaret Miller in 1925 and had 3 sons, Patterson, David and Kenneth, but none had male descendants. So when the youngest, Kenneth, died in 2007, he was, in effect, the last of the Toulett Glass line. My grandfather, Davy Joseph Glass, was an important person to me and to my family history. A lifetime in the shirt business had left him in poor health with breathing problems, and he spent a couple of months being looked after in Coleraine by my mother in early 1952, just before he returned to the Glen, where he died on the 2nd of June. I was 7. I do remember him as being pearly, but kind, always inquisitive, and fond of reading stories to me. No matter where he was, he would post me a copy of the Beano and Dandy, and that really upmarket comic, The Eagle. And ultimately, I inherited the caravan at Benone. Thank you, Davy. And thank you to all the Glasses from Toulett and your ladies.